Overwhelmed, hopeless, helpless, and alone. Not living, but just existing. The feeling of a weight constantly pushing down on you. Never lets you feel happy, never lets you sleep. The feeling of isolation while being surrounded by everyone. The feeling of constant loneliness and unhappiness. Relentless and never ending. You put on a mask to get through your days until you finally can't anymore. Mental illness will indirectly affect all Canadians throughout their life, whether it is through a family member, friend, or a colleague. In any given year, 1 in 5 Canadians will personally experience a mental health problem or illness. And by age 40, about 50% of the population will have had or have a mental health illness. And suicide is one of the leading causes of death in both men and women, from adolescence to middle age.
The story of two young boys, but this is no fairy tale. Both, once filled with so much life and joy, faced even more pain. One chose life, while the other chose an escape.
15-year-old Simon Dufour was a funny, energetic teenager who loved jazz. But behind the smiles, there was also deep sadness. Simon's father says the teenager was bullied endlessly, something that started in grade 6. Dufour felt helpless.
There was a game that was called, and like, I cannot translate it, it's like anti-Simon. If you touch to Simon, if you talk to Simon, automatically you will get a disease.
How often do you actually come to encounter kids coming to you with like mental illness issues and like depression, anxiety, etc.?
So that's a big part of my job. I get students coming to my office all the time with varying degrees of mental health issues.
What would you say is like the most common though?
One of the most common things is anxiety and general stress. Students come to my office and complain about anxiety and stress all the time.
So you're telling me that children actually come to like the guidance office and like use it for things other than school?
Absolutely, yeah. It's, stress and anxiety affects their personal life and their school life, so they come and talk to me about stuff like that.
What mental illness did your brother suffer from?
He suffered from depression.
What was your brother like before his depression?
He was that always really happy, goofy kid. He had the big goofy smile, and he was really dorky, and he was always full of life, and he never really worried about what other people thought of him. He was very in the moment, loved his little computer games and playing soccer, and a very happy child.
Do you know what triggered his depression?
In 2009, my father had died of cancer, and unfortunately my brother, he spiraled because of that. Unfortunately, that happy, goofy kid just kind of died when my father died. He was 12 years old, just going on 13, and he was no longer that little 12-year-old boy that I had loved and knew for my entire life.
What was the result of his depression?
He became very angry. He hated everything that had to do with life. He started to question life, and I remember him screaming and just having all this anger inside of him, and I never understood why. And it wasn't that I didn't understood, it was more like I just didn't want to accept the fact that my brother was no longer my brother, and he didn't care for life anymore. And it's a very hard thing to watch someone you love no longer love themselves or love their life.
What would you say are common triggers or even patterns you notice? Like, for example, is there a certain demographic that you see is most affected by depression, anxiety, or like triggers such as, parental stress and like the work of school? Like, what do you see is like the most contributing factor?
Well, I see senior level students seem to have anxiety and stress more than junior students. And they come to me especially when it's like culminating activities time and exam time. It seems to be most stressful time in their high school year.
This is a bit of a personal question, but like, what was like the worst case or like the farthest that you had to involve yourself in a situation where a child's come to you about a mental illness or mental disorder situation?
Well, I've dealt with all degrees of mental health issues and some of the extreme cases where students are contemplating suicide. And that's obviously a very serious issue when students are considering suicide. It's an immediate concern that needs to be addressed immediately, right? We don't want someone to hurt themselves. We want everyone to be be safe in the school?
I'll woke him up at 5 o'clock. I say, Simon, you okay? Yes, that's Dad. Big laugh, a little hug, and good to remember that we see you on Sunday. I left around 5:15, and as I heard, he took his nap at 6:15.
Simon woke up at 5 a.m. to give his dad a hug and say goodbye. That was the last time Dufour would ever see his son. Just over 1 hour later, Simon jumped in front of a train and killed himself.
So, what did you guys do in terms of helping him and trying to get him help?
We took him to a child psychologist. I went along with him because the things that we saw when my father was dying and after he had died, and the emotional despair and the emotional turmoil that we went through was so bad that we needed help, and my brother needed help because he couldn't accept what had happened. And if I lost my brother too, I don't know what would have happened.
And what would you say saved your brother?
Getting help, having a support system that didn't let him fall, and we tried to hold him up every single day. I mean, it came to the point where my brother's bedroom had a bunk bed, and I would sleep on the top bunk, so he would fall asleep knowing that somebody was there that loved him, and he would wake up every morning knowing somebody was there that loved him, so he was never alone.
How is your brother now, after that stage of his life?
He's happy with life. That little spark of him, that when he was a child, maybe it'll never come back again. But he's still alive. He's still there, and he's still my little big brother.
Even after reporting the issue to the school, he says there was never any follow-up and that more needs to be done to stop this national tragedy. The school sent out a letter after Simon's suicide with resources for kids who were struggling. The Dufours hope sharing their son's story will prevent more deaths.
My brother was lucky because he had, a family, especially my mom and I. We both were like, okay, we're going to make sure that he knows it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be at war with yourself. I couldn't lose him. There was no way that I would let my brother go. So I helped him. And it cost a lot and it hurt a lot, but it was worth it because I go home every day knowing that my brother's at home and he's happy and he's okay. He's 21 years old, in university, has a girlfriend, is loving life, and I will never forget the day that after he got better and he started to see the light at the end of the tunnel and the war inside of his mind settled. I remember him coming up to me and saying, Quinn, thank you. I'm so sorry. I love you and you're my hero.
Is there anything else you can tell me about anxiety that you've come to learn through experience?
Well, studies have shown us that 1 in every 5 people will experience some form of mental health issues during their life. Anxiety and stress seems to be the #1 cause of that mental health issues. We know about 41% of students will experience some form of anxiety or stress throughout their educational career.
Mental health isn't any less or any more important than, let's say, heart disease. You still have to go to the doctor for that. You still have to get help. And just because it has to do with your mind and your brain does not mean it is not important. We add this negative connotation and we make these people feel so bad because they need help. We shouldn't make them feel bad for needing help. We should help them. I'm very lucky that I didn't lose my brother. Because, the world would be a little grayer without him.
After doing a survey involving the youth of Toronto, I came up with the answers to these questions. So, when I say the words mental illness, what comes to mind?
Like suicidal thoughts, depression, just like thoughts that really hold you back.
Being just stressed and not finding any support from the world.
Depression and anxiety and stuff that teens face on an average basis.
Have you known anyone or do you know someone who's currently suffering from a mental illness?
Yes, I know many people who are suffering from mental illnesses.
Yes.
Actually, I know a lot of people, professionally and personally.
Yeah.
I do know people who are suffering from mental illnesses.
I do, in fact.
Have you known anyone who has committed suicide?
No.
Yes, I do.
No.
No.
I do not know.
Yes, I know someone who's committed suicide.
Do you think that society is doing a good job, like, addressing the issue of mental health?
I feel like they do a decent job, but I feel like they could address a lot more than they currently do.
I think they've been doing better than before, but we still need to work on creating more awareness about it.
I think currently it's being brought up more, so I guess we're going in the step in the right direction.
I don't think society's doing anything. It's still a kind of a taboo.
I don't think so.
I think society is the cause of mental illness.
Do you think that mental health is an issue that we need to be made aware of?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. I think so, because I think everyone struggles with it at least once in their life.
Yes, because it's more serious than people think.
It's something that we need to be aware of because it's so common, but it's more secretive.
Have you helped raise awareness to alleviate the issue of mental health, for example, like donating or participating in a charity event?
No, but I kind of just talk to my friends who I know have depression.
No.
No, I haven't.
I mean, I have. I've donated money. I've, donated my time. But I think I could certainly do more.
For the question of, have you known anyone who suffered or is suffering from mental illness, 96% of people said yes. For the question of, have you known anyone who has committed suicide, 31% of participants said yes. For the question of, do you think that society is doing a good job alleviating the issue of mental illness, 55% of people said yes. For the question of, do you think that mental illness is an issue society needs to be made aware of, 100% of people said yes or answered in the affirmative. For the question of, have you helped raise awareness to alleviate the issue of mental health, for example, donating, participating, or running in a charity event, 43% of participants said yes.